Mercedes have chosen to chase a very interesting path during the pre-season testing in Bahrain, as the team revealed a brand new design and philosophy on the W15. However, with their front wing already causing a lot of controversy on the grid even though it was proclaimed legal by the FIA, could Mercedes be hiding performance by not running their car to its fullest potential after the latest statements from Russell and Wolff? And more importantly, could Mercedes throw the scent off the rest of the car by making everybody busy with their front wing instead of the rest of the car, which survived a massive overhaul in the past couple of months? The Silver Arrows have hit the ground with the car that has one of the biggest burdens on the grid, and it already looks promising when it comes to reliability and pace, but this is exactly where the suspicion starts to arise. Mercedes did not run the car to its absolute maximum, and according to Russell, the team was not chasing speed or performance in the testing, but trying to maximize the mileage for learning. This is a very interesting aspect because if the team is not trying to reach the optimum sweet spot with their car, then it might be the fact that they already know where the car stands, and it could deliver some promising results on the third day, where Mercedes would run on the soft tyre compound and will try to push the car to its maximum in order to see whether or not they will have done a great job in creating a beast of machinery from the W15. But right now, the fact that both Russell and Hamilton were not topping the timesheets or were anywhere close points towards a scenario that Mercedes is working on their own agenda. Many would label this as sandbagging, but in reality every team has its own separate goal, and while it's still possible that Mercedes could be hiding performance and not running the engine to its maximum until the car hits the qualifying session in Bahrain next week, we won't exactly know where the W15 stands. In the first 2 days of practice sessions, Mercedes were primarily focused on race pace, which should benefit them a lot in the upcoming week with all the data they would have gathered from both Russell and Hamilton's outings with the rebranded W15. On the other hand, Friday is the day when Mercedes will run a few sets of soft tyres for some fast-paced qualifying laps. The last day of pre-season testing is the most ideal time for any team to do this due to the track evolution and the rubber being laid in the past 2 days. So you could kind of say that Mercedes are aiming towards what would be a free practice 3 type of thing on Friday. According to Russell, the car already feels a lot better and there's massive improvement compared to its predecessor, even though the timesheets do not show that. Still, this was also present on the first day of pre-season testing back in 2020, when Mercedes were outside of the top 10 only to go on and obliterate the rest of the grid in the upcoming campaign, which is more or less the original villain story as to why the Silver Arrows are always related to sandbagging when they're delivering under-expected results in these kinds of events. Adding to this matter further, Russell said, "It was great to drive the W15 for the first time in anger today. From hitting the ground, it felt like we had a good foundation to start from. We completed lots of laps and have plenty of data to go through tonight. We ended the day in a reasonably good spot, and we can build from here over the next 2 days. We will be focused on maximizing mileage for learning rather than chasing an optimum sweet spot with the car. Overall, the W15 does feel nicer to drive than last year's car. We know that it's not about the feeling, but the speed. Nevertheless, today was about learning and not about chasing performance. We're focused on ourselves at this test, and it will only be next week where we see where we stack up against the others." Mercedes do have a lot to learn when it comes to the aerodynamic performance of the car, and the fact that Wolff spoke about the W15 having entirely new aerodynamic surfaces compared to its predecessor goes to show that there will be a lot of interesting developments to look forward to in 2024. On the other hand, the front wing was not mentioned in their briefings, and once it hit the daylight, it was obvious that this genius interpretation of having 2 main planes fixed to the nose and the third one being attached by a carbon fibre and technically being proclaimed legal is going to stir up some drama in the upcoming period. This is different to every other invention that could have hit the sport in this regulation, because of its aerodynamic nature and the fact that inventions like this could definitely add a lot of performance by bringing back the creation of the Y250 vortex, something that was banned in 2022 due to the ground effect being introduced with the new regulations. And according to F1 Chief Technical Officer Pat Symonds, the fact that the wing was proclaimed legal as of now by the FIA does not mean it will remain that way, and the innovation itself does raise some concerns when it comes to whether or not the sport wants these types of things brought to the cars. Adding further to this matter, Symonds said, "When you start to get things that are perhaps producing some outwash, and here I think what we're seeing is really trying to reinstate quite a strong vortex to push that very turbulent air that's coming from the front wheels to try and push it aside. One question then, is that really within the spirit of the rules?" Mercedes' front wing is within the regulations, it's within the letter of the law, there's absolutely no doubt about it. Is it the sort of thing that we want? Well, I don't know. That's perhaps a little bit more debatable, but I think we need to know really how strong the effect is. Symonds believes that the FIA will start to suspect that this innovation does have the potential to ruin the competitiveness of the sport, and the aerodynamic group, which he believes is composed out of very experienced and high-level individuals, could spot the front wing as a potential trend the governing body won't want to witness with all of the other teams. But is this something that can be replicated from the rest of the grid? And more importantly, does it actually bring as much performance as originally believed? The creation of the W15 vortex is definitely a very important factor, because this is where everything starts when it comes to the aerodynamics of the car. The air hits the front wing and the front tyres first, and if you optimize the airflow from this part of the car, then you've basically done quite a good job of regulating the rest of the aerodynamic surfaces as well. But according to Wolff, there's nothing to be worried about, because Mercedes didn't just turn up with the front wing on their own and hope the governing body would label it as legal. They had constant dialogue with the responsible people in the FIA regarding this matter, which is why it was proclaimed legal in the first place. According to this matter, Wolff said, "It's not such a thing where you have a clever idea and then you bolt it on to test and you think, that could be or couldn't be challenged. That's a long process of dialogue that happens over the winter. I feel we're in an okay place." Apart from that, Mercedes have also fulfilled some of Hamilton's wishes, such as moving the cockpit 100mm back and enabling him to have a better feel with the rear end of the car, unlike what he had to deal with now, where he's explained that driving the W13 and the W14 as sitting on their front wheels. Obviously, with the current aerodynamic regulations narrating that the majority of the downforce would be created from its floor, it's crucial to have a very strong rear end, something that Hamilton prefers a lot, but not to the point where you cannot control it, which was the case back in 2022. This was alerted by the departing 7-time world champion, who went on to say that even though he expressed his fears about the previous design of the car, he wasn't listened to and was told that he was in the wrong there. When talking about this matter in a further extent, Hamilton elaborated, "I remember complaining to the team and being like, look, we have to make these changes, otherwise this is the trajectory we're going to go on and this is where we're going to end up. Please do something about it." I remember they said like, "We know what we're doing, you're wrong." And that was definitely an interesting moment. I was like, okay, I'll step back, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. Then we got into the season, then we spoke again, and the engineer said, "Oh, maybe you were right." Judging from this perspective, it's kind of easier to see why Hamilton opted out for the move he made regarding activating his exit clause. But nonetheless, he still has one full season with Mercedes, and right now the W15 does look decent enough to compete for wins and podium finishes much more frequently than the previous 2 years. If you add to the fact that the RB20's first issue happened, which is the failure of the brakes on Perez's car combined with Marco's fears that there might not be that much of a performance gain with the new design of the car, considering that Mercedes failed 2 consecutive seasons with it, a small glimmer of hope can rise for the Silver Arrows in 2024. But according to Perez, the brake issues as well as the potential for a small fire that happened are not something that should worry the Red Bull fans because they've got a bit too hot, and the team made some corrections before he headed back into the track. By replacing the brake material, Red Bull would make sure that this won't be a problem in the first couple of races, where hot temperatures would definitely be a challenge, even though the first 2 races will be driven at night. With this in mind, what do you think about Mercedes' theory of hiding performance? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.